Welcome to Her Career Studio. I'm your host and career coach, Lisa Virtue. Here we live by the mantra, thrive at work so you can thrive in life, because we know you are more than your day job. Each episode includes actionable tips and often mentor stories to not only boost your professional success, but also enhance your personal well-being. Join me as we explore ways to ensure your career uplifts your life. As you strive to achieve work-life harmony, head to hercareerstudio.com for free resources and coaching services to help support you during career transitions and challenges, such as when you are looking to find and land that next ideal job or promotion, or are leading a new team. We're here to support you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And please hit the thumbs up or leave a 5-star review if you are finding the content useful. This helps us keep going in our mission to help women in their careers. Thank you so much for your support. Today, I'm talking to my guest, Malik, who helps corporate moms lose weight with an anti-inflammatory nutrition strategy that is family-friendly. After she lost 55 pounds, even with a thyroid issue, she developed a method to kickstart weight loss and healing for women who have tried everything but nothing works. Combining her education as an MSW certified mindset coach, plus 10 plus years of personal experience, research, and endless doctor's appointments, Ashley's approach guides women to lose weight, gain energy, and live the happy life they deserve. Please enjoy our conversation regarding how anti-inflammation is changing the game for women in the workforce. Ashley, thank you so much for taking the time today to come and talk to me and the listeners about anti-inflammation, our work, and how our diet and our health and lifestyle affects our work and vice versa. And so I would love to just have you start by talking about a little bit about your career journey and how you ended up in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. Lisa, thanks so much for having me here. I'm super excited to hopefully share some good nuggets that will help busy professional moms just like me. It's an interesting path how I got to where we are today. About 10 years ago, I was working in an environment that was a very busy tech startup. And at that particular time, I was one of the older people on the team, even though I wasn't even 40 yet.
Yeah.
And there was a tremendous amount of pressure to work hard, work tons of hours. I was working at least 60 hours a week. My commute was 2 hours total throughout the day. So I was bringing work home. And so I was putting in a ton of work, feeling really challenged to keep up with the pace. And for a while, I sort of thought, well, maybe is it me? Like, am I just not capable of doing the work? I found myself really falling into this lack of confidence. And I was starting to have a lot of anxiety and depression about what was taking place. I was also a single mom at that time. And so I had a lot of plates in the air. I was juggling a lot of things. So I started visiting doctors and trying to figure out where is this all coming from? Is it me? Is there something wrong with my health? And I also was really struggling to lose weight, which was challenging because years before it had come off with no problem. And now it just was hanging on. And I sort of would joke, I practically could just look at food and I felt like I would gain weight. So after about 3 years of seeing doctors and all kinds of doctors and specialists, they would always tell me, I don't know, everything looks fine. Why don't you just come back in 6 months? And that just wasn't working for me. So I ended up falling in line with a functional practitioner, and she, through a long series of testing and questions, she diagnosed me with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disease that impacts the thyroid, and also severe nutrient deficiencies. And getting a snapshot of my health at that time helped me to recognize there was a lot going on in my body that was directly impacting my work performance. And as I started flowing into learning how to eat better for my body and for my thyroid issues, I started dropping weight. I ended up losing 55 pounds. But I also, because of the lifestyle that I led and the career that I had, I started creating this way of eating, which I now call component cooking. But it was how do you cook for yourself and for your family and not spend all weekend meal prepping. Like there's got to be a better way. And so I started creating a formula for how to do that. And as it started working for me, and I shared that with other women, and it started working for them too, they started feeling better, being able to show up to their job more confidently, just more clear-minded every day. And so back in 2023, I was actually laid off from my corporate job at that time and decided to go into coaching full time because this is what I love. And I love watching women sort of that light bulb moment of, oh, if I'm eating better foods and I can still feed my family without all of this extra stress and work, I'm going to do better. I'm going to feel better. I'm going to show up better every day. And that is just magic for me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. So we have a similarity in that I also was diagnosed with hypothyroidism, and that was during the pandemic. So all the mental anxiety and family anxiety, everything going on at that time. And then you add that layer and wow, it's so stressful. It was a big relief actually at first. Huge relief. And now it's just that thing that we have to deal with, right? It's that thing. Yeah. And it can have a lot of weight when you feel like you get swept up in the busyness, or I have a young daughter. And so it's like, oh, are we going to this party again? What are we doing with food this week? It's hard to not just want to eat out, even on the pocketbook. So that prep and everything, I'm excited to get into more of your tips about meal prep. That's something that we are always struggling with. And I always feel so much better when we take the time and really just create a strategy. It doesn't have to take a lot of time in the kitchen, but it's that strategy part, I think, that can be overwhelming for some women.
It's so overwhelming. And that's really what I found in my journey. And now I just hear from women everywhere. They have the puzzle pieces. They sort of have, like, okay, well, maybe this meal plan might work, or I'm going to try Whole30, or, I hear anti-inflammatory or balance my hormones. Like they hear little things and they try to piecemeal those things together. It's overwhelming. And the strategy is the perfect word for it, because unless you have sort of the right pillars, creating the right kind of action in your body, you can eat well, but if you're not moving all day, you're still going to be tired. And if you're moving too much, you're probably creating more inflammation. And then that's not going to help you either. So it's really looking at it holistically, which a lot of women they don't have the time, but they're trying, but they want to get there. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I love helping them get there.
Yeah. So what would you say if women are wondering, is anti-inflammatory diet what I need right now? What are some of the signs, symptoms, things they should be looking out for?
There are so many. So you can notice a lot of different things about your mental focus. If you feel like you have a lot of brain fog, you drop your sentences, you drop words, you forget people's names, really feeling tired in the afternoon. There is a natural lull in sort of our circadian rhythm around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But if you are just dead tired in the afternoon, there's something going on. If you're struggling to lose weight, that can be a big sign of inflammation. Anything from gas, bloating, indigestion, not sleeping well. Like there's so many signs. And I think as we get older too, I just turned 49 last week. And as we get older, we start to just think, it's probably just because I'm getting older, or maybe it's, early menopause, or I'm just tired because my job is stressful. And what I can guarantee is that when you fuel properly and when you help to reduce some of that systemic inflammation in your body, a lot of those things start to go away. It can even be things like skin rashes, joint pain. So it's helpful to just take stock of where you are from head to toe and think about like, what's not working well? What doesn't feel really good? And being able to put all of those together and say, yeah, collectively, this looks like there's a problem inside my body somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, I always would get inflamed around my cycle, right? Monthly. And so that was kind of a normal thing for me. And if I was in a humid environment or like when I studied in Rome one summer in college, like, oh my gosh, the inflammation was just out of control. But we were also eating a lot of olives and things that had a lot of sodium. But I do the ring test now too, right? Like, how's my wedding ring doing on my finger? Like just you kind of feel bloated and then really taking stock in those little things about your body. Yeah. I don't know if that's something you recommend, but when I started noticing that was happening outside of my cycle and things would just not, it wasn't balanced and it didn't feel like I was leveling out. Mm-hmm. That's part of some of the symptoms I had. And I had a very strange reaction. I also have some indigestion, and not indigestion, excuse me, but digestion issues. Mm-hmm. At SIBO, et cetera. And usually those go hand in hand, right? Hypothyroidism and your digestion. There's a lot of times there's big correlations. And what happened for me was throughout the years, especially with women's healthcare, going to different doctors, it was around birth control, or let's try this hormone birth control or whatever it was. And it just kept bothering me. And I remember talking to even female doctors when I was young, in my 20s, saying, I don't know, I feel like birth control is just not what I need. Like, it feels like this might be a bad thing that I keep putting hormones in my body, right? And chemicals. And she'd look at me like, what do you mean? Like, there's no studies around. I'm like, right. There's no, scientific studies. This is what they always point to. I'm like, yeah, because no one's studying it. First of all, no one's studying health for women. Hopefully that continues to improve. I know there's been some movement in the past year or so on that end, but even around hormones, there's just not a lot of research. So doctors have their hands tied often when they have certain medical practices they have to stick to. And so that was a big problem I had constantly. And now there's studies coming out finally years later, 20 years later after I was saying this, that, we need to reevaluate hormonal birth control. We really need to look at that and how it's affecting women long-term, because it's fairly new. Mm-hmm. It is fairly new in our society. So that was a big one for me.
Yeah. You make an interesting point too. Like, that you knew that you felt not quite like something was off. Mm-hmm. You knew that. And as women, I mean, this could be a whole separate conversation, but I think it's sort of, I feel like the word gaslighting is a little extreme, because I think that practitioners, especially female practitioners, they've learned a set of tools and a set of skills. And so we can't really fault them that they don't know, but it just makes it that much more important that we as women start doing some research on our own, listening to conversations like this, and then advocating for ourselves and saying, no, I actually don't, like, I think the birth control is not working for me. What are my other options? Or I don't feel well and I don't want to come back in 6 months and I don't want to keep waiting. What can I do? And I know not everybody has the availability of time or the resources to access things, like functional practitioners are not usually covered by traditional insurance. And that can be really challenging, but there's a lot of information out there and ways to start digging in, because most women, they sort of start by saying, I don't feel right. And I don't know what to do about it, but I just feel off. And that's the best place to start, because then you can start taking that personal inventory of what's happening head to toe and listening to conversations like this, doing a little bit of internet research, and then making some decisions about how you want to move forward. Because that's right now, that's how we will get somewhere and we will start feeling better.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that was what I was going to say, is the advocating for yourself and not giving up on that, I think, is huge. I'm very fortunate here in Oregon. We have a lot of different practitioners and a lot of healthcare that goes beyond pharmaceutical. And because of that, a lot of my practitioners that are covered by insurance will work with me and them. So I will say, well, I'm going to work with a naturopath on this, or I'm going to work with an acupuncturist over here, or a wellness coach. And they're really good about saying, okay, let me look at how that's going to integrate in your overall healthcare plan. So that's what I would recommend, is anyone that is looking outside of that traditional healthcare and trying to figure out how to create, your own network of healthcare providers. make sure you're telling everyone everything, right? So they can put the puzzle pieces together. So for me with the hypothyroidism, the way it got diagnosed was actually right after I had gotten a COVID shot, I had a reaction and it was within a week. And that was an interesting timing. Again, no research. We don't know exactly what happened, but maybe there was a good thing out of this because I had been driving so hard for so long in my career, very ambitious and personal life, had a young family, just go, 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 go. And then everything shuts down. I changed careers, a lot of stress, personal life stress. And then my body starts changing. And I knew I wasn't working out as much. We all thought during COVID, we're going to work. Some people did a great job of that. Most of us got really lazy and sat around too much.
And made sourdough bread.
Yeah. I was working so much on my businesses that it was just, exercise became secondary. So I thought, is it just, I'm not taking care of my body very well. And what happened for me, which is very strange, is that I had a stomach upset and it felt like, hunger pains wouldn't go away. And I couldn't tell what was going on. So I took myself to urgent care and the doctor there, she was very sweet, but again, very one-track mind. And she said, you have indigestion. And I'm like, this is not indigestion because I had indigestion and heartburn. She kept saying heartburn. I was like, nope, heartburn's higher up and it's very different. And I had that when I was pregnant. So I knew the difference. And she's like, well, I'm going to give you this again, a drug, right? To take care of that. And I went, okay, first of all, I don't want to take the drug. I'm going to fast. That made it worse. So it's very interesting. So I had a follow up with my doctor and she was not there. And so she had someone covering, this wonderful woman that had been in the healthcare field for, almost 30 years at that point. So she had seen a lot. And so she was just covering for a couple hours a week. And I happened to get her on that week. And she just listened to me. I said, I would like to share with you all my ailments throughout the years and all the things, right? And this is how I feel. And this is what has always happened to me and what people say. Blah, blah, blah. And I just tell her everything. Yep. And she stopped and she went, I'm going to have you do a lot of tests. Mm-hmm. This was the first time anyone had ever said that. Yes. And I didn't even know to ask, which in hindsight, you think back and you're like, gosh, I didn't even know. Hypothyroidism never felt like, because I didn't have a problem with weight back then.
Right.
So that always felt, that was the traditional way of, if you have a problem with weight gain, you should get your thyroid checked, right? If you're not, and I just didn't have that issue. So I had no idea it could have been something like that. So I got the call and I was very relieved.
Yes.
Very relieved. And I said, thank you to her. I was just so grateful that someone finally listened.
Yes. Yeah.
So I would advocate, get those tests, just ask for what are the tests that I can take? Tell me all of it. Yes. Do your research. Yeah. And then people like you that are out there that are pushing information, sharing stories. It's so powerful. I would say that's probably where a lot of the movement with healthcare is going, is because there's social media.
Yes.
And now people
and I love that because it's our way to reach other women to say, because my experience was similar. The functional practitioner that I came in contact with, she took 16 vials of blood and asked me hundreds of questions. And I felt the same way. I'm like, my normal doctor gets me in and out in less than 7 minutes. Mm-hmm. And here it was a 90-minute conversation. And I felt the same way when she told me what was wrong. I cried.
Yes.
I am not losing my mind. I am not, it's not because I'm old or incapable. And that was the narrative I was telling myself, is I'm not capable of keeping up with this job. I'm not capable of keeping up with, the kids that I work with who were like early 20s at the time. And it was just such a relief. But then there's the journey of healing, and that can be equally overwhelming. But yes, the testing is so important, and it's more and more tests are now available, even just by checking for them online. And you need someone to be able to help you interpret the results. But the testing will help you to see what I would say, what's going on under the hood, what is happening in there. And then you have a starting point to say, okay, this is what I do now to start feeling better and to stop feeling that off feeling.
Yeah. I used to feel guilty when I would do research on the internet because, I don't know, 10 years ago, it was, oh, stop doing research on the internet about your healthcare because you go in and people, oh, I have all these ailments, right? And they were made up or fictional, or people just were using them as excuses and doctors would roll their eyes. I have seen a shift with healthcare providers too, where if I come in and I'm like, I would like for you to tell me, here's a few things that I've seen that could be possible. Could you tell me yes or no? Maybe we need to test, right? And it can make the discussion much more advocacy level, where I feel like I am an advocate and I've had really good success with my doctors. So
agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed fully.
Awesome. Well, let's get into more of that healing part and what you do, Ashley, and talking a little bit more about how an anti-inflammation diet can help people like us that might have a diagnosis, but also just in general. What are the benefits?
Yeah. So I am a firm believer that if you are over 30 years old, you should be eating an anti-inflammatory diet. Everybody, men, women, all of it. As we age, things happen in our bodies, our mitochondria, our cells, everything, it just changes. And so the goal with an anti-inflammatory diet is, first of all, to reduce the amount of inflammation that we have in our body. And we can do that. What people hear first is, oh, well, I'm going to take out some foods. That is correct. There are specific foods and types of foods like gluten, dairy, soy, corn, alcohol that create this inflammatory environment. And if you think about like when you cut your arm or cut your hand and it sort of swells up and gets red, imagine that happening inside of your body when you're eating some of these things. No wonder you're tired or your joints hurt or you're losing hair. Your body is raising a little flag saying, help.
Or you forgot about that spreadsheet that you needed to turn in at work. And you're like, how did I forget that? This is not like me. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so what we think of first with the diet is, I can't eat all of these foods. But on the flip side of that, I always try and remind people that we also get to add a bunch of foods that support our gut health. Our gut health does everything in terms of keeping our body running, keeping us healthy. And so if we can have a healthier gut microbiome, the rest of our body will feel good. So that's starting to add in foods that support that gut health, that don't contribute to inflammation. And as most people sort of assume, that looks like lots of lean proteins, tons of vegetables, fruit. I really advocate trying to take out whole grains as much as possible, but still having carbohydrate sources, healthy fats like nuts and seeds and avocados. And so it can be a diet that's very delicious and flavorful. It just takes a small shift in how we think about eating. And that's really one of the things that I try and help women who are moms specifically. Their families recognize, oh, mom's eating a salad. I don't want a salad for my meal. So how can we take foods that we're familiar with, like tacos or burgers, and create those in anti-inflammatory ways so that you feel like I'm not missing a thing. I just ate a quesadilla last night and I'm not missing a thing. My family's quesadilla may have looked a little bit different, but the way you start to feel when you eat that anti-inflammatory diet, it happens so quickly. And even, I had been, I say sick for a really long time. Like they couldn't even register vitamin D in my body. It just wasn't there. And within a couple of weeks, all of a sudden I recognized, wow, like I'm not forgetting things as much. And I am able to get up easier in the morning and I don't feel so stiff or so groggy and tired. So the change can happen very quickly. The goal is to make it a lifestyle. I really struggle with, I think Whole30 is a great approach and it's very close to anti-inflammatory eating. But it doesn't just happen for 30 days.
Right.
The goal is to make it a lifestyle. When your body, a lot of people will say, yeah, I did Whole30 or I tried paleo for a month and it was great. I felt so good. And my question is, why did you stop then?
Yeah,
Your
exactly.
body is actually giving you the signals to say, I love this. Thank you. I feel so much better. But we default back to what's common, what's familiar, what's easy. Because sometimes you're right. Like you said, it can be hard to think about, oh, I'm going to a barbecue tomorrow. Should I bring my own food? Does that look weird? What is there going to be for me to eat? But the benefit is that if you bring your own food and you make the right choices, you're going to feel great at that barbecue and you're going to be able to interact and be social, and you're not going to feel sluggish or tired that day or the next 3 days. So it's really shifting it to a lifestyle and appreciating how you feel when you're eating to really fuel your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, volunteering to bring a side dish or just bringing one, right?
Yep.
If it's potluck style, it's always a good habit to do that.
Yes.
I was going to mention the social pieces where I think that, especially with people going back to work, if they've been remote or in the office or going to lunch with colleagues, that is where I tend to see people start to slip and get out of habit. So when it comes to choices on the menu, do you have recommendations of what you do when you go eat out?
I do, but before we do the strategy part of that, I'd love to put a thought in everyone's mind that when you're out with your colleagues and they're all ordering, I don't know, let's just say you're going out for sushi and it's like a team lunch, you're having sushi. It all looks good, but you know that there are a lot of things in there, mainly the soy and there's gluten and different things. You're going to struggle. It's really important to think about what you're making that mean about you. There's this whole mindset shift that needs to take place to understand I'm not weird because I'm choosing to make different food choices on the menu. I'm not an outsider. My colleagues and coworkers will not think differently of me because I'm choosing to order my own separate meal instead of, sharing within the table. So I think it's definitely a different way of thinking about it, but I know this is why it's very easy to sort of cave when it's a team dinner or you're out having cocktails or whatever it is. We cave because we don't want to feel embarrassed. We don't want to have to really explain what we're doing. But when you are out, it's really easy to prioritize your lean proteins, some sort of carbohydrate, and vegetables. And it can be as simple as saying, hey, there's a chicken dish on the menu. Can I just have the sauce on the side and maybe some extra roasted broccoli? Done. The kitchen is already making something very similar. It's really easy for them to make those modifications. And I really encourage, when it's not always possible, but if it's possible, just peek the menu online ahead of time so that you're not stressed about that. And you can actually sit and enjoy the time with your coworkers, with your team, and then eat your meal. And it doesn't become the focus. The focus can actually be back on socializing and connecting with your coworkers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my husband and I have gotten really good at just asking for what's not on the menu.
Exactly. It's like Starbucks hidden menu.
Yeah. I will say I have a family member who does that, but in a way that everyone at the table kind of rolls their eyes because it's 1,000 questions. So I always recommend go in there with what you already know you want. And if you've glanced and you see okay, they've got avocado here, they've got egg, this is my husband, he wants eggs and avocado for breakfast, right? And if he doesn't see exactly the dish he wants, there's a lot of filler or potatoes with it or something, he'll just say, I just would like this and this. And usually it's very simple, but he'll make a direct ask.
Yeah.
So yeah, going in and just knowing that I really like that suggestion. Look at the menu ahead of time as much as possible, just to even a glance, and then say, okay, here's what my body needs right now and what my diet needs. And I'm going to ask if they can make some version of that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I was for a couple of years was on a board of directors, and we would have regular quarterly meetings. It was just a quick email to the executive assistant that was putting together the meal plan, asking her for a salad that had X, Y, and Z and dressing on the side. It was so easy. And then the funny thing is when we would get to the board meetings, people would look at my dish and they were like,
they'd be like,
oh, that looks so good. How did you get
I didn't see
that?
that on the menu. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's, it's just, again, going back to being an advocate for yourself, because I can be more productive and more impactful in that board meeting because I wasn't worried about digestive issues or not feeling well or, not remembering what we were just talking about. And all of those things were very real for so long. And so if you find yourself in that position, advocate for yourself. Just ask for what you need to eat and you will feel so much better.
Yes. That is such a good suggestion, especially when it comes to, who's the one organizing it, and make it simple for them and give them a direct ask.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they're having any trouble, they'll come back. I've had that experience too, where especially executive assistants, coordinators will come back and say, okay, I couldn't get this exactly, but here's something close. Would that work? Instead of, hey, I don't see any salads on the menu. Is there some kind of salad we could have? I've worked directly with these assistants where they were like, well, what do they want?
Right.
People want you to say what you want and they'll figure it out. Yeah, exactly. Yep. And I think especially as women, because even like we were talking about going into your doctor, it's really hard to, in our society, for a lot of women, the way I guess that we're raised, it's just culturally, it's very hard for us to do that. Be really specific about what we want, but tell you what, people appreciate it.
They appreciate it. And it goes back to the mindset. It goes back to, I have one client that I work with and she went out for a girls' weekend and she ended up eating a lot of things that didn't make her feel good. Mm-hmm. And her response to me was, I didn't want to be a bother. Mm-hmm. And I said, you know what? What's happening is that you are sacrificing your health, your well-being, your confidence, the way you feel every day because you don't want to be a bother. And I think that as women, we do struggle with that, but how much more change could we create in the world? How much more impactful could we be if we felt really good just because we said, I just need a salad with chicken and avocados and pecans. Done. No problem. And then you become this amazing, you can contribute in such a more meaningful way. So it's worth it.
And not to mention how much that will empower others around you. Like, oh, I can ask for what I want. Like when people, it's just this ripple effect, right? When people start seeing that, my in-laws, we get together a lot and food is always the basis of it. And over the past years, such a great shift has happened where it's okay. We know who's coming. We know what, and we change our diets a lot. My sister-in-law, she has different things at different times. And so we just check in and we say, what would you like? And what would you like to bring? And people will avoid what they don't want. And it is very different than when I first met my husband back in high school, way back. We go way back. That was a very different situation. Back then I was vegetarian, which whole nother conversation we could get into about too much sugar back then. It probably did not help my health. And so that was the only thing but still people will be very conscientious. They might roll their eyes. They might joke about it the first time, but they get over it.
Yep.
Becomes who you are. And if you're consistent with it, I've seen people just understand that. Yeah.
They do. And they actually, you're right. They look to you. And then a year or two from now, they'll say, tell me more about what you're doing. Because you feel good. You look amazing. You're glowing. People say that to me all the time. They're like, you glow. And I'm like, yeah, I'm fueling from the inside out. That's how it works.
Yes. Oh,
so we can be an inspiration.
Absolutely. Well, Ashley, your work is fantastic. I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing now. Is helping so many people. And I know you have some gifts for the audience too. Could you please tell them how they can get a hold of you and what kind of gifts you have?
Yes, absolutely. So you can find me online at ashleymalik.com. I'm super active on Instagram and LinkedIn. So you can find me there as well. And I think we'll have links in the show notes. And I have in my journey, like I had said, I've developed this strategy for how to cook less and still cook for my family, cook only one meal a night, And actually, I only cook 3 times in a week, but I still have meals for 7 nights, and it's all anti-inflammatory. And so I have a free meal plan that I would love for everybody to get their hands on and watch how easy it is to create anti-inflammatory dinners for your family, and you will start to feel amazing in just 1 week. It happens so quickly. And you won't get overwhelmed. There's very little meal prep on the weekends because who has time for that? Nobody. Mm-hmm. So this meal plan really gives you everything that you need to be able to be successful with a whole week of anti-inflammatory dinners, and see how you feel, see how you start to change, how your body feels lighter, your brain feels, more sparkly. Mm-hmm. So I would love for people to go grab that.
I love it. I'm going to grab a copy too. Can't wait. Well, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. We could talk all day about it. So I really appreciate your time and support and helping women. That's what we both do. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Loved being here and sharing. Thanks, Lisa.